So, hello everybody, and welcome to the June Patreon. Um, I already did a poll, and we will do some fluids. And some of you that follow me on Instagram, you already know what's going on. So I just posted on Instagram. I just posted some RD style frames things stuff, and yeah, here are some of the snippets in PRF, and we will do something like this. So in this month in June we will do a simulation and R&D, and in the next month look dev, or maybe there will be a collaboration with another 3D designer next month. I don't know, but we will see it how that will process in the future. So we will do some liquid forms with the subtools. So we will deal with the subtools of Flip. Yes, they may be a little bit slower than a scratch build up, but I think they are pretty nice for just build it up quickly and do a little bit of R&D. And here are basically some of the results. Some are stretched in post. Some look like an animal, I don't know, like a fish. Then I played with liquid and like textures, and yeah, I really like those results, and I find them really nice for style framing, especially for example this one and this one. So later when we do look dev next month, etc., or you do it on your own, you can like really get in there and try to play with, of course, fluid or liquid materials, but also non-liquid materials, because of course we are in this 3D design world and we can basically do whatever we want. Why not break some rules there? Okay, so let me close this and don't save that. And no, I don't want help. And yes, here are some setups. Wait, let me get my tea ready here on the side. And yeah, you can just see, let me just get you a view on that one here, for example. This was like a pretty quick liquid simulation, but I really liked it. Let me just disable that and visualize the speed here, and just make a little flipbook for you all. 240. And the cool thing is, you can basically start from a certain object. For example, in that case, it was like a cylinder. That's like the cool thing about it. So you can start with like a initial shape and then morph it to your wish, or play with velocities, forces, and so on. So I think that's the cool thing about it. Let's just let the flipbook run a little bit, and you can really see here like a custom force that will bend it, collide it on itself, and morph it in a cool shape. And the outcome was basically, yeah, something like that. I also played, of course, with surface tension, etc. You can also do that, and then we will cache the whole thing out. And here are a few other ones. I think they're not oh, they are cached. So this was, for example, like more of an of a quick test, but I think it came out pretty cool. So we'll start with this more liquefied hollow pattern. We will also replicate that in a second. I really find it cool alone because it really got that kind of fluidish look to it. And yeah, then it will get like morphed in several directions, which is also pretty cool. And I really like those surface tension tendrils. They're pretty cool. So yes, I think we could get started. Maybe I give you one more overview. I think, yeah, I did one more here. But this is not cached. Or is it cached? It's cached. Oh yeah, this was the like animal tiber looking thing. So I really also like this one here. Let me just cache that quickly. Or convert it into a surface. For example, something like that. And then of course you can post-process, etc. So I think we'll start with that one, and then we'll do some R&D on that. So first of all, for our basically for our flip setup, we need a few things. We need a flip container. This is like our container. The naming I think is a little bit wrong. Next we need a flip boundary. This is like our flip source. I don't know why they named that. So we got the flip boundary. We've got our flip source, for example. You can then play with different boundaries, and then of course we need our flip solver, and that's basically it. So if we got now a sphere, for example, as our source, we can then play, for example, with the resolution, and you can see we've got here our initial forces. So for example, gravity, density, surface tension, or our initial parameters, viscosity. Then additional attribute, for example, really nice rest attribute, age, ID, vorticity, etc. Then viscosity, of course we can also dial them in via an attribute. But yeah, when we got our sphere, our flip boundary, and our flip solver, and we press play to get my T out here, you can already see we emit some flip particles. The thing is, I really don't like that representation, so what I usually do, I go on the visualization tab and turn off point as spheres. And yeah, you can see it here. For example, when we now dial up the viscosity, for example, 1500, of course we will get a higher viscosity. Then another thing is we can introduce a collider. So if we just copy the same sphere here, just to get you an overview, and move that down a little bit, you can see we now got a viscosity emission in combination with a collider. So we can make that a little bit smaller to get maybe a little bit more interesting result. And another thing is with the flip boundary, you can, for example, say $FF bigger than, I don't know, 24. And you now emit for 24 frames and then let it basically settle. Of course, then you can come back in here and, for example, disable the viscosity for more fluid-like behavior. Then there's also the particle acceleration, of course, like your resolution. But then let's get started here a little bit more nicer. So what I want to do first, I want to get like maybe global substeps. So just get 2 for now. I think that's way better for the surface tension. For the surface tension, you can play around with values. I found out, for example, for this kind of setup that surface tension about 50 to 60 works pretty fine on that one. But of course, you can fully play around with that. Then another thing, we need our little cool looking emitter, for example. What we can do is, of course, we can use primitives. We can bash a few primitives together for initial source if we want. But I think what's pretty nice to play around with the sources, or like our initial source geometry, because you get like whole different results. For example, of course, you can use a tube. I used a tube for, I think that one. Nope. It was that one here. And of course, you can use that and play around with a form like that or shape like that. But let's do a little bit kind of a different source with those nice fluid patterns. So something like that here. So what we need a little grid. And I want to scale that grid down so that the size is pretty much reliable to our bounding box here. So we got a grid, and now what I want to do, I want to just remesh it. And I want to go, for example, to 5 iteration and give it a good amount of detail here. And after that, just get a WOP. And what I basically want to do, I want to mask out certain areas and just delete them. That's basically the whole thing. Of course, you can play around with different forces if you want. I think that's always a nice, not forces, noises, a nice way to do that. I will just use a standard anti-alias noise and just get a spline ramp and buy and export that whole thing out as, for example, mask. Let's just call it mask. And what I want to do, I want to just promote those little parameters. The ramp is already promoted, and then we can start to visualize our mask. And you can also see it's here. Let's our good thing would be to fit it from, because the anti-alias is minus 0.5 to 0.5. Way better. Now we can increase like the contrast here. And then we will place down a delete by expression, add mask. Voila. Now we need the lab tools. I really like those, especially I like the labs edge smooth. Just place it down. Include unshared edges, and we already got something like really organic here. What we can do now is just get the thicken node out and thicken it, and let's get a match size just to move it into the center. And I think that's maybe a little bit too thick, so let's go 0.05. I think that should be fine. And now for the aesthetics, we can basically just VDB polygons. Smooth that thing out and convert it basically back to polygons. And now we already got a really nice source we can use. So we can label that out source, place a null node and bind that or connect it to our thing here. This just delete all attributes just to be sure, and maybe get a little bit more resolution in here. That looks fine. Of course, nothing will happen because we basically turned off the gravity. Of course, we can turn on the gravity again. And you can already see we've got a pretty cool little simulation going on here. Just simulate that for a few frames. And you've got something like that. Particle fluid surface, drop it down to convert the polygons to polygons. And the thing is, what I usually do, of course, get the particle separation right, and I usually disable the adaptivity and filtering. You can, for example, dial in the smooth here a little bit to just move it out. And you got something like that. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's organic structure, organic skyscrapers, you name it. So now what I want to do, let's just dial it in manually. This is 0.01. Of course, you can just copy the parameter and paste relative reference. But yeah, what you then can do, what I did for like this more nicey fluid behavior, we can build up our own little advection field. So with, for example, a volume VOP, we can then start to build up our little advection field for our fluids. So first of all, we need a box, And what I like to do, I like to get roughly like the same size of our bounds, so 10 by 10 by 10, for example. Of course, you can just copy them basically. So copy the parameter, paste relative reference. You can also do it like adaptive. That would be also a thing. I think I started it adaptive. I don't know anymore. Okay, I did not. So for example, 10 by 10 by 10. And we will get a volume. We will use a vector volume with a name of val for our velocity, so x, y, z. And let's just use by size, 1 million voxels. I don't know the resolution here. Okay, it was basically the same. And now the cool thing is we can place down volume web and dive inside. And what I want to do, for example, is to get like a curl noise. Get the position to the position and the noise not to the density. I want to bind, export, or write back again the noise into the volume as well. So basically velocity. So we will fill our velocity volume with velocities. And the nice thing is what we then can do is get a points from volume. It's faster than like oh my god, then like for example the scatter node. And we can get a volume trail. And for example, have a look how that volume could look like with the velocities. Now we can out val at vect. And we will dive inside in our flip solver. I want to get a pop. Of course, you can play with pop forces in here, just to quickly remind you with that. You can get every pop force in here that you want to like try out or to play with. So for example, the pop axis force here currently, it will rotate your fluid, or you can play with something like that. I don't know. So you can basically use every pop forces in here to play with, and I find that really nice to do. So, but what we want to do is to get, first of all, like a pop drag, to just give it a little bit of drag, or maybe 0.85. Then a pop wind would be nice to just introduce a little bit of imperfections. The swirl size could be a little bbit smaller, and the amplitude, let's go for a small amplitude, for example 0.05. And then pop it back by volumes, and we will drag our thing in here, and for example give it a little bit more velocity scale. And when we start our solver, you can already see our our fluid is moving. Maybe it's moving not... Okay, it's moving nice, but what I want to do, I want to increase here our emissions. So maybe frame 72. And what I also want to do is to get a file cache in here. Let's name that cache, cache PTS fluid 001. So we will basically cache out our fluid particles, and yes, this is a simulation. And let's just save that to disk. And let's write out a few frames for now. And after that, what we can do, we can just click load from disk, or what you also can do, you can place another file node to just bring it back in. That's fully up to you. What I also like is to visualize color by speed. I think it's not mapped. Color by speed, that's always nice to look at. And now what we can do, for example, we can get the offset to the time. Or you can do make a vector 4 out of it, play with that. So let's just do that and give this a go. And what I want to do after that is to do another quick R&D test with velocities, but from curves. So we will use yeah, basically the curve node and play with that. Because I find it also pretty nice. Oh yeah, that's cool. So we can then play with, for example, with the offset of the noise. But let's do, because I really like that. So what I did here is just get some random things going on and write that whole thing in a volume velocity. So what we can do, we've got here our initial source, nothing special. And the cool thing is we can get our bounding box. So our bounding box here. And let's just do a VDB from polygons. And I want to convert that into a density. Density should be fine. But let me just, yeah. But I think that's a little bit too high in the resolution. And curve, volume velocity from curves. It's a really nice node. Now we can adjust the voxel size like a little bit. And what I want to do, I want to get the volume in here, and then it will need curves. So what we can do now, we can like basically visualize our source and our bounding box, and we can get a draw curve, and we will draw some stuff. So for example, I don't know, we'll start here, get in here, make a few rounds, get back in here, get back in here, do a little swirly here, I don't know, do a big swirly here, get out again, get in again. Something like that. Looks pretty damn shitty in my opinion. But the cool thing is, we can resample it. And maybe it will not look that shitty anymore. I don't know. Let's go for subdivision curves, and after that we can smooth the whole thing. And we can smooth it nicer. For example, something like that. And after the smooth, we can then, for example, place down a sweep and get a round tube in here. Why not? I want to apply scale, maybe a hill. Maybe something like that could work. Let's go 0.5 and 0.2. I don't know. 0.25, 0.25. And I want to overgrow this value here. And I want the columns, and I want, I don't know, 3. And maybe we can twist the whole thing. And now we can pipe that into our volume velocity from curves. Maybe we need to dial back the resolution. Let's just quickly dial it back. No, I pressed escape. Okay. Let's go manual. Let's get it back here quickly and just get the resolution a little bit lower, maybe. Just a little bit. And get back on. Yeah, that's way better. And what we can do now, we can either get, for example, the box and use that as a representation of our volume trails, for example. What we also can do, because it's basically, of course it's 3D, but it's more of a two-dimensional thing. What we can do, can get the bend node in here and just bend it like a little bit, or twist it. Let's just twist it and see how that will look. Way cooler. And now we can pipe that into our outlet vector and see how that will influence our curve. So basically did that same thing for all of my explorations. The nice thing is what you then can do, you can basically take your cache that you did for the fluid stuff, and you can reuse that, for example, with a bend. So you can bend it out later if you want. So that's like one of the cool things you can do. You get something like that. That looks neat. Especially those 3 here. 1, 2, 3. And then of course you can start playing with also different different source geometries. Nice, I like that. So I think we're done for now. I let that simulate here and just do another frame for Instagram. And yeah, you can start playing with the setup. And yeah, please try out the volume VOP, try out volume velocity from curves. You can also combine those. For example, what I also really like to do, I think I already did it somewhere maybe. Start with a vellum grain simulation or start with a pop grain simulation. Then trail those curves, for example, and use those curves to then drive your volume velocity from curves, and then use those velocities to drive your liquid, for example. And they don't need to be static. That's the cool thing. You can also play with the smooth velocities and smooth them out a little bit, for example. And yeah, just play around with those. And I will see you in the next one. Maybe the collaboration, or then look dev on those, or another tutorial. So yeah, I will see you definitely next month. Thank you all so much for your support, and keep going.